Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hey. It's so good to be here together with folks tonight. Hello. It's so good to have such a great full panel with folks from all across the school here. So thank you. And thanks to all of you who are attending tonight. We're so happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the ways that we foster community here at Catlin Gable, and in particular in the beginning and lower school. I'm Dawn. I'm the head of the beginning and lower school, so preschool through 5th grade. And I forgot, I was supposed to say right at the beginning that we are recording this, so to be sure that everybody knows. At the beginning and lower school is preschool through 5th grade. Our preschoolers, we have 20 of them are learning right now on campus, and our kindergarten through 5th graders, we have approximately 40 in each grade level. They are learning remotely. They're also having some opportunity to come to campus. We have some optional on-campus activities happening in the afternoons for those kids. And so before we get started, I'm going to have all the panelists introduce themselves. If you could tell us who you are and what your role is here at Catlin. And then we'll have some roundtable conversation, all of us here on the panel. And then I'll open it up to questions from all the people who are here tonight. So as we're chatting, if you have questions for us, please put them in the chat. And then we will work to answer all of those. So first, let's meet the panelists. Isaac, can we start with you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Isaac Enlow. I'm the assistant head of the beginning school.
And how about Zach?
Hi there. My name is Zach Bloom. I'm one of the 4th grade teachers in the lower school.
And Gina?
Hi there. I'm Gina, and I am a parent.
Great. Can you tell us the ages of your kids and
yes,
how long they've been here?
Yeah. I have a senior and a sophomore in the upper school, and they have both been here since honeybee year, their preschool year.
Thanks, Gina. And Peter?
Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Musselman. I'm the music teacher in 1st through 5th grade, and this is my 2nd year here at Catlin Gable.
Thanks, Peter. Genevieve?
Hi, I'm Genevieve Bowis, and I'm the assistant head in the lower school, and I've been here for 9 years, and I also have 2 children here, a high schooler and a middle schooler.
Thanks. And they've been here since the lower grades as well. Right?
That's right. Yeah.
And Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa Ellenberg. I'm beginning and lower school librarian, and I've been here 26 years, I think, and have 2 daughters who graduated from the school.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Hi, Nirvana.
Hi, I'm Nirvana. I have 2 boys at Catlin Gable. I'm a parent, and one is a 4th grader who's been here since kindergarten, and the other is a 1st grader who's been here since honeybee year.
Thanks. Jed.
Hi there, I'm Jed Mitchell. I have a 6th grader who started as a kindergartner, and I am currently an advisor to the PFA Executive Council.
Thanks, Jed. Hi, Nina. We're all introducing ourselves and saying how we're connected to Catlin.
Sorry, mute issues. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Nina Danielson, and I have a 2nd grader, Burko, and I served on the PFA last year, and then my husband, George, is also a teacher in that upper school.
Great. Thank you. I'm excited about all the different perspectives that everyone is bringing to the panel, so thank you. We're going to start just by talking about what are some of the ways that Catlin Gable fosters community. And you can just go ahead and chime in if you when you have something that comes to mind. And while folks are thinking though, Peter, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit from a music perspective and maybe sharing a little bit about things like community meeting or the ways that we try to come together through song.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, as a music teacher, it's important to make sure that everybody knows some of the same songs. And then that happens during class. And when we all get together in community meeting, it really locks everybody together. When we, I like to say, when we all know the same songs, we all belong. And music is important in our daily lives as well as our weekly community meeting. I'd also like to speak to the Friday sing in the beginning school, where parents are invited to just sing along and just kind of get to know your kids and your kids' friends and your kids' friends' parents as a community. Music is part of what we do with various celebrations throughout the year. It's a little different right now, but Harvest Festival is a time when we all gather as a school, as a beginning lower school, around a bonfire and welcome the new season as the sun is getting lower and we're harvesting, and we like to tie into various cultures that will celebrate harvest, and we do that in the Fir Grove through music. And every grade has a chance to sing and perform something. There's tradition in there, right? And I appreciate Dawn's words when she says, tradition ties us to the people who are here now, and it ties us to the people who have been in our place before. But traditions change. It's important to think about, why are we doing this? And new perspectives come in. And last year was the first year that we all sang "Stand By Me" all together in the Fir Grove. Yeah, first time ever. And it could be a new tradition, but traditions happen because people want them to. So as there's interest in the students, Peter, are we gonna do that song again this year? That gives me an indication that our traditions are flowing and changing, while we're still tied to the important traditions of the past.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Peter. We're still gathering for community meetings while we're remote too. So still working to build that community. And we had some Harvest Fest remotely, although it was definitely missing the fire and the trees of the Fir Grove.
Yeah, and I just would like to add, thanks for reminding me. We in Zoom classes, of course, everybody's separate. We're all in our separate spaces, and some people are tucked away in their parents' office. But in our music class, I had a chance to have a dance party, singing "Everyday People," the Kool and the Gang song. And, it was just like part of a class, and we just recorded ourselves. The kids had these choreographed moves where they did something funny. Some kids were doing some tricks with their camera off and on again with some. And then we collected that together and played that video, and it really looked like we were all dancing together for a moment.
It really did. It was really life affirming. Yep. Thanks, Peter.
I think it's fascinating to hear about the traditions, and having now two upper school kids. Of course, I remember Harvest Festival very fondly. But my senior today carved pumpkins with her first grade buddy. And certainly I feel a lot of nostalgia and remember that time when she was a first grader, and it looks a lot different today, and that's okay. We'll figure it out. But that sense of community that has tied me through all the years that we've been at Catlin, and now having upper school kids who I know the parents, and I've grown up with the parents, and we have this wonderful community of, hey, my kid's coming over to your house. Is it okay? It used to be that we talked about food allergies or preferences, and now we're talking about more adult things and how kids are handling homework. And I have that community set within Catlin and the parents that I've gone through all of these years with. And I think that has been so meaningful and helpful.
Thanks, Gina. Sometimes something I hear from parents is having formed those relationships when their kids were younger has helped to navigate, the parts of life that become more complex when they become adolescents.
Really, really, truly. And I feel like I can call people, and we have that comfort and that history, and you grow, and jobs change, and You know, some of us move around the city a little bit and we're not as close as we used to be. We're not dropping off in the Fir Grove anymore. So there's less chance of us getting together, but we have that comfort and that respect that has grown through those years. And we can ask the hard questions, like, is a parent going to be home? And you know what that means. And we trust each other in that way. And I can't imagine not having that. And I'm so grateful.
Thanks, Gina. Lisa, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about, you know, the role, the important role the library plays in how we're building community.
Well, when we're on campus, it's wonderful to have the library in the actual center of the building, and community meeting happens there. And we also have optional recess opportunities in the library that bring subsets of community to get together. We have on Monday and Friday quiet space for those kids who just really need a break from the activity and want to cuddle down on a pillow and just read. And then on Tuesday, we have active choice where the piano is going and people might be doing gymnastics and playing various board games. On Wednesday, we had open mic, which was a lot of fun with all grades enjoying who knows what. Was not vetted in advance. It's just come and do it. And the kids absolutely love it. It was for kids by kids. And then on Thursday, we have outside play, so I can go eat with adults. So that has been a really fun way to build community. And also we have a system of self-checkout. And I think this builds community because all the kids know they're trusted, that they can come up to the desk, open the notebook, scan their name, check out their books all on their own. And that self-efficacy that is built from even preschool on up really makes them feel powerful. And some other librarians have said, well, wait a minute, couldn't they check out a book on anybody else's name? And I said, yes, they could, but they don't. And I think that's because we build a community that says we trust you to do the right thing.
I love hearing gymnastics and library together.
And I forgot Disco Friday.
Oh, yes.
I was actually going to open with Disco. I didn't want to go right after Peter because I didn't want to make it seem like it was just all dance based. But I'm Zach. The first time I ever set foot on campus was a Friday. And I walk in and I'm, given a tour, and it's Disco Friday, and there are kids dancing, parents dancing, teachers dancing. And it's all in the library, which is super central in the building. And it spoke to this level of joy, this level of community, this level of participation. And, and for me, I don't go a lot, but for me, it's always a measure of like, I'm going to look silly. This is going to be silly for me. And that's a way of also kind of leading kids in. But I also just think about community and joy. I'm sitting here at the desk where I teach, and I'm looking at I've sort of had to turn this into my office, right? And, it's not, but I look at my bookshelf, and the books that I have right at arm's reach are not about, they're not math books. They're not writing books. I have those over here. I can get them. I have The Joyful Classroom. I have Belonging by Mona Halliday. I have the books that are all about bringing joy and connection and community to kids. And the ways that, we can't get together to do Disco Friday, but that underlying purpose is joy and being together. And so through my morning meeting, which is the same online as it is in person, is all about putting the kids at the center, the full selves that they bring to the classroom, their lives outside of the classroom, conversation skills, and of course, previewing for the day and a lot of rich content. But really, it's just about how do we imbue it with joy? So I have the pleasure of partnering with the person who brought Disco Friday, who now makes me use this puppet. So this is also ways in which I avoided it as long as I could. But these are ways in which we just want to bring as much joy as we can. There, Peter, again, we're not, nothing is beneath us. But I think there's a way in which wanting to share these things with the kids, wanting to share these things with family, bringing the joy, And again, the understanding of that underlying purpose of the joy, right? The kids love it, but it brings them together. You can let your guard down a little bit. You can find things you have in common. And then we'll always look for those little ways that we can do that just to be together and get to know each other away from some of the other pressures that come along with the school day.
Absolutely. Thanks, Zach. Like everybody's got their teaching tools right in reach right now. I'm wondering from some of the parents if you could share how the PFA helps to build community, what that role looks like.
Yeah, this is Jed. I'll hop in on that. There are a couple different ways that the PFA is involved in creating and supporting community at Catlin Gable. One of them is parent-to-parent coordination, and as Gina mentioned, you really do get to know the other parents, in part because you love your kid and you love the kids that are with your kid all day. And so you get to know the parents, and that's really fun. And some of that happens spontaneously. You drop your kid off and you see them and you see a parent, and these conversations start. There also are structured opportunities to do that. There are either parent social gatherings, or there are all school assemblies where parents are invited to come and learn about the school and meet with administrators, and those are coordinated by the PFA. And the PFA also plays a role in connecting parents to what's going on in the classroom. And the classroom teachers do this as well. It's bi-directional. The school reaches out to the parents, but the parents also play a role in trying to find volunteers for certain events that happen within the classroom. And for each classroom, there are 2 representatives that work more closely with the teachers to really think about how the parents can support what's going on in the classroom to support the education of their kid and all the other kids in that class, to really make the experience amazing. And I have to say, from a personal level, it's really fun having a 6th grader now. I'm no longer in the lower school, the beginning school, but I know all of these faces that are on the screen right now, and I have a real fond connection with all of them because my kid has spent time with all of them. And as a parent, I've been invited and welcomed to connect with all of these teachers in a way that's really special. It makes me feel like I'm a part of my kid's education, and I'm helping to contribute to the school and really part of this wonderful community.
Thanks, Jed. Nina, could you talk a little bit about what it looks like to be a PFA rep from a grade level perspective?
Yeah, definitely. I think, when I was thinking about this question, the thing that resonated most with me about being part of PFA is the opportunity to both coordinate, and there's a lot of communication that happens, and a lot of it's over email, but a lot of it is in service of getting people together. And so sometimes that's like an event, like right now there would be, if we were together for school, we would be at school doing something for Halloween with the kids. And it was so great last year with parents being able to show up at school and support a day when the kids were having fun. And so I think those opportunities to just be together and, like everybody's saying, like have some joy together is something that PFA brings to the community. It's really the job of the PFA rep to look for those opportunities to bring people together. So that certainly was something that I experienced. It was sort of like, I didn't know that was going to happen by being a rep, but that certainly happened for me, that I ended up meeting more people and got to experience the community in a different way. And especially, like, I work full time. And so some of the things that happen at Catlin that are community oriented weren't easy for me to get to. But this was a different avenue for me that was really worthwhile.
Thanks, Nina.
Yeah.
Nirvana, I'm wondering about your experience and your 2 boys and how just sort of building community has gone for your family and them.
Yeah, no, it's actually been wonderful. I was a PFA rep as well for John's class when he was in 1st grade, and I kind of had the same experience. I was getting to know the parents and doing, the get-togethers that are required of us to organize. But in addition, people would reach out, around Thanksgiving and say, why don't we do something like the Oregon Food Bank? So we'd organize, as PFA rep, I would organize, a get together like that. And then, when Cy came through as a honeybee, I can't even imagine how many people I'm going to know and be close with by the time my kids are in high school, because it already really feels like we've formed such a connection. And, seeing John's friends, when we're on campus, and even actually during community meetings, and how close they are with Psi, and just the sibling connection and the friend connection there, as well as the parent connection. It's just something that's grown over time, and I know it will continue to do so.
Thanks, Nirvana. Isaac and Genevieve, I'm wondering if you could chime in from the perspective of, how we're supporting children to be healthy members of community, and what we're doing, when things go awry and problems come up or there's conflict, and how that's also how we see that as opportunities to help build community.
Yeah, we've been focusing a lot on just how we work together to foster a positive school climate where kids feel included and safe and known. And we just really believe that the vast majority of that work is proactive. It's the things that, Zach and Peter and Lisa and all of our panelists have been talking about that happen all day after day throughout the day to build a really strong and vibrant and connected community. And then when something does go awry, we have something that we're trying to repair, like something we're trying to get back to, which is that, we've harmed our community in some way, and so we're a part of it, and let's figure out how we're gonna fix it and try to make things right and better.
Mm-hmm.
Genevieve?
I would just add that parents are such an important part of that process, that we have a lot of really authentic conversations about what's happening, from both sides. When your kid is the kid who gets hurt, and when your kid is the kid who maybe hurt somebody's feelings or body, just really having a lot of empathy and working together to problem solve and find out what's maybe, just thinking together. So I just wanted to add for the with the last question, I'm just so astounded by the PFA and all that happens at the school, and what parents bring to the school. And they do it just with, it's with this real generosity. And I just feel like there's a presence there that kids feel. And I think that helps them to also feel responsible in the community. It's also kids know each other's parents, and, it just helps with that sense of community in the school, but then it extends beyond that, beyond the school boundaries as well.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. I see someone asking a question around just the geographical diversity of families attending Catlin from around the metro area. And that connects to sort of the next thing on my mind was just specifically how we're supporting new families. So how are new families welcomed and really then brought into the community, and how is it working for families who are, maybe not from the West Side, who are coming from all over the city? I know many of us here are East Siders, so.
Something I just want to say, and again, I'm just recognizing the need for community and connection this fall. I've marveled at how the PFA has stepped up with real flexibility to sort of listen to parents. At our back to school night, we just had a great conversation with some new parents kind of saying like, we could use some connections. And within days, within weeks, there was just with my PFA, and I've seen it roll out across the entire division, just let's get these events going, let's get this event going. And it's one facet, I think, to the depth of the work that I'm not even aware of that the PFA is doing from my teacher point of view, but just recognizing what I can see that the events that they're picking are, or like offering to families, are reflective of what I'm seeing from the needs and desires of my students. And in a way that is, in addition to all the great work the PFA has already done, would also complement what we otherwise would be doing as a fourth grade class to build family community on campus. That it seems like PFA has especially now taken on that role.
Mm-hmm. And Zach, can you talk a little bit about what is it like for kids who are new to Catlin, in your classroom, and what are some of the ways you've seen teachers work to build those kids into the community?
Sure. Well, I mean, one of the things I know that happens outside of the classroom, of course, is that, that there are also, families who will partner with new families to welcome them in and to ingratiate them. And then also in classroom with teachers, I see is just spending, I mean, the beginning of the year, we spend so much time building relationships with kids and getting to know kids and authentically know who they are. And sort of like Isaac talked about, those relationships are the foundation for all of the great learning we're going to be able to do for the remainder of for the year. So it's just a fundamental thing that we do. And so with, in a year where we're physically together and a year where we're physically distanced, it really is investing that time just to get to know the kids and to sort of understand what their strengths are, and also just along the personality lines and what's going to be the best way to reach them. So, for me, that will look like I'm going to give kids even in remote learning, lots of different ways to share their thinking, lots of different ways to feel safe to speak up, whether that's if they don't feel comfortable typing, they can speak out in the Zoom meeting or vice versa, and everything in between. So recognizing that really we don't have a one size fits all approach in terms of the amazing kind of breadth of kids we get here. So really getting to know them is, I think, at the really the first stop on the way to sort of, develop those relationships.
I saw a beautiful experience in the kindergarten classroom where the teacher asks them to bring a heartstone, something from their home that they can fit in the palm of their hand, and just take a few moments to share why that's important to them. So just inviting kids to reveal little treasures that they care about helps them to know each other. And then they sometimes get into compliment circles to help kindergartners who are pretty self-centered to try to look outside their rectangle and notice someone else. And that was a really beautiful class I participated in.
Mm-hmm. Peter.
I'd like to just add to what Lisa said about adding some positivity from each student to other students. In my class, we got into a habit that was hard to break of appreciating each other. Oh, I would like to appreciate so-and-so for singing. Oh, wow, wonderful. And then somebody else, well, my turn. I'd like to appreciate my neighbor for singing because she helped me remember the words. And then I'd be like, all right, we're gonna move on to another. I have another appreciation. So there's this real community building that happens on every level. It's not just, the whole community. It's just within each small group. And everybody comes out feeling, welcomed, not just by the teacher, but by, oh, well, that kid that I don't talk to very much appreciated me today. And now then you kind of pass it along. And I'm not sure if this is a non sequitur, but I'd like to go back to another thread that Lisa mentioned, which is about trusting. She talked about trusting, everybody's trusted to borrow books. What my first impression of Catlin Gable when I first started visiting is that I was coming from schools where, okay, everybody line up and, the volume has to be 0. And it was a different situation. The hallways might have been a little bit more crowded. There was a reason that we all should be quiet. But when I arrived here, I was in the music room, and all these guppies just started flowing in the room. And, where's the line? And no teacher. And so, all these children came from recess or their classroom, and some of them might have gone around the other side, but eventually they get to their room. So that element of trust where children feel trusted, and they don't want to break that trust because, sometimes those privileges can be removed. But that sense of everybody trusts each other, and come on, we're supposed to go to music is something I hear. You're like, okay, just one more second, and eventually when they're ready, they do come. And never had a problem with students just like not being where they're supposed to be. So yeah, that element of trust made me really interested in what can we do with that sense of trust when somebody feels that comfortable in their brain. What kind of learning and what kind of creativity can come of when I'm appreciated and trusted and I have a musical instrument. Here we go.
And I get to run through a fir grove to get to class instead of walking quietly through a hallway. Yeah.
One thing I want to mention about making new families feel welcome is the host family program. And, you know, how as, you know, someone who has had a host and has been a host, that family serves as a liaison, not just in the beginning to introduce you to other people, set up play dates, in this case, Zoom play dates and distance play dates and all that. But really, I mean, I've gotten texts from families that I've been hosting throughout the years, like, what do I pack my kid for lunch? What works for kindergarten? How do they eat? You know? And so I think the host family program is really integral to helping families integrate and having somebody to reach out to throughout the year.
Yeah, it's all those small questions, like small and big questions, right? But a lot of times just wanting to know, just, you know, what should snack be? It's so helpful.
There's
Jen-
also that, oh, sorry, Jed, go ahead.
I wanted to jump back to the East Side question because as someone who lives in Northeast, and when we started, we had, I think, very similar questions and maybe concerns to Jennifer, who posted in the chat about, you know, are there families coming from all over? We live on the East Side. Do you have families from over here? So yes, there are families on the East Side. There are more families that are not from the East Side than are from the East Side. But there is a sense, at least that I have in the 2 or 3 grades above and the 2 or 3 grades behind, because those are the kids that I know, that we stick together. We have a sense of our own little sort of informal community of East Siders over here. And many of us take the bus, and that's a great time to chat with people. When I had the opportunity to drive to school, the carpools happened. That was also another really wonderful time to get to know people. There's, as a parent, there's sort of an interesting thing that I realized at the time when I was able to pick up Jack from school, was that the 20 to 30 minutes on the way home was a wonderful buffer from school. It was time he needed to either vent stuff or just be quiet or whatever. And then we got home, and then we could start our day. There were many times conversations happened when I wasn't looking at him. He was in the back seat, and it was this really magical time of I'd learned stuff and I didn't ask him anything about it. He would just sort of start talking about things. And there's less of that now that he's in 6th grade, as you might imagine. But at one point, the time, it is a time investment if you're going to drive, and it's a time investment for your kid if they're going to take the bus. But at the same time, that was really special time for me and for him to be in the car together. And I don't like cars. I can't believe I'm saying these things, but it really was this really sort of, it was time every day that was there. And sometimes great conversations happened and sometimes they didn't, but they did happen. And it's a really special part of the time that we spent together.
I'll add a little bit to that, having carpooled with a group of kids. The great thing is if you just hang on to that steering wheel and stay quiet, they forget you're there. And then they start talking back and forth, and you just learn so much. So having a full car, going to play dates all over town was a big part of my life. And it just was, like Jed says, if you think about how to make it work, always have food in the car, always have a snack, and then nobody is cranky and they start talking to each other, and it can be very interesting. I thought of another thing too, that the school has a zip code map to help you create carpools or just find out who's nearby.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa.
I was just going to add on to what Jed was saying about the East Side and the bus. I feel like, and kind of connecting to trust, I mean, there were some times where trying to get to the bus in time, like if traffic or something happened, and just knowing that you could text the other, another parent and just say, I'm not going to get there. Can you just grab my kid? And, it's just knowing that there's like a backup plan, and having, it just felt very easy. And, to add on to what Gina said, now that my kids are older, I feel so grateful that I had all these moments. And, the kids' friendships, they ebb and flow, but it always feels like you can rely on the parents to, in those moments, like, I'm not, could you, like in a pinch, people who I hadn't talked to that my kids had maybe played soccer with, 2 years before, were like, hey, could you give so-and-so a ride home? It's like, oh, sure, no problem. So I feel like it's just kind of embedded in the culture that you're gonna help out where you can. And a place where that came up was in the snowstorm. I feel like people, the big one, everybody knows what I'm talking about, when the city shut down. But I feel like getting kids home, people got really creative, and people knew who to ask, and they buddied up, and we figured out how to get carloads of people home without everybody having to get up to campus.
The snowstorm, that was our big story before the pandemic. Now it's been eclipsed. There's a question here wondering, what is something that you would like to see change that would make the community even stronger?
I don't know if this answers, this is Nina. I don't know if this answers the question. I think a lot of what we talk about at home right now in our family is stuff that's going on in the world, right? Like this year it's been big. It's a big deal. And whether it's the unrest in our community, things that are happening downtown with the riots, the virus, which is this big mystery, and we don't know what's going to happen, the fires that happened this year. I think something that one of the most powerful community events that crossed borders, like whether you were West Side, East Side, wherever you were coming from, is there was the climate march. Was that last year in 2019? And a bunch of kids from Catlin went, and a bunch of parents went, and teachers went. And we all showed up together downtown to be part of that event. It was really powerful. And so I think like as things are happening in the world that are having a big impact on us, coming together in community can be really powerful. And so that day that we were all there together, experiencing that event together, that was about, these children's future and the climate, felt really powerful. And of course we're limited, but I think like Zach was saying, like our PFA is incredibly creative, and we're thinking of all kinds of ways. So I would just do a plug for Ions in Our Own Shoes. That's like a really great place to go, also for community building.
Nina, can you explain it a little bit more, what Ions is?
Yeah, so I'll do my best, but others chime in. Ions is led by Jasmine Love, who is it Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Director?
Equity and Inclusion.
Yeah. And she hosts a community meeting. I think it's usually monthly. I know it's coming up in November. ION stands for In Our Neighbor's Shoes. And a variety of topics are presented, and sometimes there's a guest speaker. But usually there's a lens around equity, inclusion, race, racism. And I think if that's a topic that you're wrestling with and you're wanting to be in community about, it's a great place to start. And I know that's really important for our family right now, and it's something that we're seeking community with. And so it's a good place to just go and meet other parents who are also thinking about that stuff and wanting to dialogue about it.
That's an interesting thought also around ions, and thinking about what I would change about the school, having been there for a parent for 12 years now. You see where there becomes a common thread of things that parents are thinking about, that kids are thinking about, evolutions of teaching or ideas that we have. And I think it was 6-7 years ago, maybe, we first started Affinity Groups. And that was in many ways a response to the parents wanting to find groups of and so Affinity Groups are based on, we have people of color, we have a Jewish affinity group, we have an LGBTQ plus affinity group, parents of children with learning differences, at many others. And it was really a response of parents wanting to have support group is maybe overstating it. I don't know that that's quite the right term for it, but it really gave us a place to go and speak to some of the things that are very individual to our other communities. And so as a member of the Jewish Affinity Group, I found that very helpful for us to talk about how we handle religion or handle our holidays when they maybe don't always fall on a convenient calendar for the school.
Mhm.
And having that opportunity was really a response to what we were missing or what we were hoping for. We didn't quite know what that change would be. And so I see those changes happening in many other things as well. But I trust the school when they say they're going to work on something. I really feel like we were heard as a community and that we're listened to. And so if there are things that people come up with having, wanting to change or wanting to run by an idea by someone, that they have that platform to do that.
Yeah, I would say that the things I want to see change in the school are also the things that we're working very hard on, but it's just a long, tough road. So we are focusing very clearly on anti-racist curriculum and practices that are in our society. And of course, they're at Catlin Gable. And it's hard to take a look at those things when you hear about how wonderful everybody feels about being here. Then it can be difficult to say those hard things. And we are targeting how to do that and practicing how to do that. And it doesn't mean that nobody has a micro or macro aggression ruin their day. Of course, it still happens. But I feel that the school is doing better all the time, like Gina said, at creating these affinity groups. There was pushback like, well, isn't that just another kind of exclusion? But the way we explain it is providing a majority experience for kids who are mostly getting a minority experience. And so, that could be adopted children or the other groups that she mentioned. So
could you talk a little bit about how, because we have affinity groups, for adults, for parents, they exist in the middle and upper school, but they also exist for 1st through 5th graders. So can you talk a little bit about how it looks here?
Yes, so it's hard to explain to young kids who typically don't feel like it should be a problem because they, hey, can I be in the Jewish group? That looks like fun. And so, well, the kids who are Jewish want to talk about how it's hard for them when there's, like Gina said, a holiday that nobody recognizes or understands. And so you can just kind of talk about it with each other. And yes, we do invite non-Jewish kids in sometimes because we don't want to say no. They're just beginning to learn about these differences. And that's another way for them to identify better. We do it at a lunchtime. So that worries us because what if a child wants to go to 2 different groups? Then they have to choose. So, it's never perfect. But I feel that we keep stepping forward and figuring out ways to make it work. And it's been very joyful. And the students are starting to get a real sense that, yeah, my identity is strongly connected to this and other people's aren't. Hey, look at that. That's me. That's not them. But they can be them and I can be me. And we accept all parts of people's identity and try to make them feel welcome at the school. And sometimes that means, yes, we're going to talk in a small group among ourselves. And other times we're going to share in front of the whole community meeting. And it's not going to be perfect. But if we don't talk about it at all, it'll be less perfect.
Mm-hmm. And this year we also have the all identity group for anyone who's interested in kind of thinking about their identity or exploring identity. And we've also been alternating which groups are happening on which weeks. So like you're saying, Lisa, right, trying to give opportunity for kids who might feel a sense of belonging to more than one group.
And I just want to say, it goes without saying, this is all by choice. So kids can opt in, they can go 1 week, not go the next time. It's whatever they're feeling.
Another thing that we're trying to do is develop a vocabulary and reuse it from 1st through 5th, and maybe even a bit in preschool and kindergarten as well. So what does identity mean anyway? What is bias? What is privilege? And if we continue to define these things in simple terms that the children can understand in lower school, by the time they get to middle school and are delving into a broader scaffold of world history, then they can see the connection.
Just encouraging people in the audience to type your questions into the chat. There is another one here just around what opportunities there are for children from different grade levels to interact with each other and build relationships. Gina, you talked a little bit about the 1st grade senior buddies.
So that's a tradition that that has been, I don't know how long, 50 years in existence, but the 1st graders every year get a buddy that is a senior, and they have traditionally, this is the time of year that they meet and first get to know each other, and they go to the pumpkin patch and they carve pumpkins together. And it's just a really fun way for the big kids to be really reminded of how great it is to be little. But even in the lower school, there were 1st and 3rd, or maybe it was 3rd and 4th grade buddies. And so there is
kindergarten and 3rd.
Kindergarten and 3rd. Okay, great.
1st and 4th sometimes.
And there you go. So there are lots of opportunities for that. And then both of my girls have volunteered in the classroom. I think it was when Sophie was in junior high that she read to some of the kids in the beginning school. And so I think that there are always opportunities for them to do that are created by the school, but also can be something that the kids can self-advocate for and ask to do, to be a part of it, which is also really cool.
And we're really excited that this year, some of the upper school students who have their own affinity groups are going to partner with our lower school affinity groups. And when our young kids hear these issues are being thought about by older kids, it's just such a great connection. Another thing I've been involved with for decades is the sophomore class writing stories with an intended audience of, we've made it K through 3. And it used to be a winter's tale that we tried to cram in December when so many other things were happening. And one year could have been Snowmageddon, as some people call it, that it just had to get canceled and move on into January. We realized, why keep that tradition of December? Let's always do it in January. So the sophomore class comes down to the library and I give them some tips about what kinds of stories young kids like, and no unresolved tension and nothing too scary, but animal voices are good and this and that. And then if they want to, they send their draft to me, and then mostly they don't. And then we have a time in January where we schedule the sophomores to come and tell their story to a small audience. And they are so nervous. And the younger kids are so good at giving feedback. I really liked your juicy vocabulary, but it could have been better if you had such and such happen at the end. And it's just a wonderful give and take. And both ends of the spectrum realize that they all do the same thing. They write a draft, they write another draft. They test it out on an audience and find out what could be changed. And that thinking of your audience is so important in writing. So that's a wonderful tradition.
We even have, small moments, I think, that help for kids to, build relationship across grades. We won't be able to do it this year, even when we're in person, but we have in the past, children who had recess all together in a way that allowed, first graders to play with third graders and second graders with fourth graders in ways that they might not, if we had everything all segmented, and similarly lunches together. And there's just a lot of opportunity for them to have these small moments together and get to know each other in informal ways outside the classroom.
Yeah, other ways that I can think of are the CNC groups, which I realize now I can't really describe. But experiential week, the week before spring break, where kids can choose, I think sumo, like Japanese is one, like one of my kids did sumo wrestling, where kids across the lower school can come together that have a common interest that week. And then on Fridays, the community meeting, that's an opportunity for all the kids to K through, is it K through 5th now, or is it still 1st through 5th?
Right now, when we're remote, it's K through 5, usually 1st through 5th, but yeah.
And Disco Friday, the 5th graders really try to fold in the 1st graders, and the teachers specifically charge the older kids with being mentors, helping the younger kids feel safe.
I just wanted to hop in with some of the most powerful connections that Jack made with older kids was during recess. And it was so starkly different from my sort of elementary school experience with an older brother. I could not talk to anyone in his class because he was the older brother and we were the scrubs, and there was just this division of like 1st grade is this and 3rd grade is that, and you don't talk to each other. And I think there's a culture in the school that's fostered through these structured activities of connecting kids that goes into these more informal activities in recess. And there are also teachers out there at recess facilitating, making sure like, okay, you got to tone the game down a little bit because they're 1st graders and 5th graders, and the 1st graders can't kick the ball as hard as the 5th graders can. So you need to make it all work. But that's a part of the culture of the school, that it's all one school and everybody's a part of that community. It's not there's a 1st grade crew and there's a 2nd grade crew and there's a 3rd grade crew and you play separately. So that's something that was really powerful for Jack growing up.
Genevieve, you were?
Yeah, I was to kind of build off what Jed is saying. Another time of day that can be important to a group of kids is the after school programs. And that is cross grades. And, it's pretty fun because they have, I think they do a great job. The programming is great. It's really trying to figure out the balance between free play and, just being outside. We have a really great space, natural space, but I feel like the play, kids have a chance to build different connections and friendships. And I remember my son had a friend who was the grade up, and after school, that's who he would hang out with, and he just loved that. And then when he went into middle school, he started to see him again, and it was just really nice to have those moments that are less structured, but it feels like real kid-centered play.
Hey, Dawn.
Yes, Nia.
I'm seeing the question in the chat about curriculum and the Portland community, and I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the center.
Yes, that's good. I was just going to ask about that, and you talk about that. And Zach, I was just wondering if you could talk about, the curriculum and how it helps them build connection with each other and also the broader Portland community. And, I was thinking about some of the work on immigration, but there might be other, But Nina, yes, talk about the center.
So the center is something that my husband, George, helps run. And it's actually a space. It's on the east side off of Williams. And it's really designed to be exactly, Zoe, what your question was speaking to, an opportunity for Catlin students and other students from around Portland and also the state. I know they've done programs statewide to connect and learn from each other and participate in projects that are about community. So I could drop the website. The website's probably the best way to learn about it, or I don't know if you're sending resources afterwards, Dawn, but either way.
Putting it in the chat for everyone, that sounds great, Nina. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so to add on and somewhat connected at certain points along the path. So in fourth grade, we have an ongoing theme of immigration and really looking at the stories of immigration and that the stories that in some form or another, every student in our community has access to. And those stories can be very, very different, right? And we really want to normalize for students the idea that some of our, that everyone has ended up in Portland somehow. But there's also a lot of stories that aren't necessarily told. So we talk about, we have families come in to share their family's immigration story if they have the privilege of access to that immigration story. And I think we also talk about forced migration. We talk about native land. And part of this also has to do with the stories that aren't told. And so when we look at Portland and why someone might want to move to Portland and end up in Portland, we look at downtown Portland and the story. My puppy's in the background, my apologies. We look at, I swear he's worth it. We look at the stories of downtown Portland, but also in partnering with Nina's super rad husband, George, at the center, we were able to learn about the neighborhood around the center, which, near Dawson Park, which has a rich, rich history in the African-American community of Portland. It's right next to the only church that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King spoke at. It's the oldest Black-owned building in Portland is still there. And so we're able to investigate all these different neighborhoods of Portland to learn the stories that you might not otherwise know as you pass through these places, especially for those of us who live on the east side. And so you get to see these places, you get to see these stories that create, and those stories are the sort of the mosaic of what makes up our class. And so as we learn all of those things, as they kind of put together, it gives an understanding of that sense of telling your story, which, first we want kids to be able to focus on having the language around their own identity. And I think Lisa was talking about that a little bit. And then the next stage would be to recognizing and celebrating the identities of others, because that's the way you lead kids to recognize what injustice looks like and how to speak up when you see injustice. And so much of that is revealing our own stories and celebrating them so that we can become more sort of responsible when as we age up, action looks more and more possible.
Thanks, Zach. Zach, amazing focus with noisy puppy in the background. That was.
I'm used to working with noise.
Yeah, so great. Well, we're at the end of our time together. So I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight, and especially thank you to all the panelists here. It was really great to be in conversation with you and to hear your stories about Catlin Gable. So thank you so much, and everyone take care.